Late summer is usually horror season in theaters, and while most of the times that means some kind of lame tween horror or a unnecessary sequel, sometimes, just sometimes, some really cool horror gems are let loose to the masses. Quietly, for some odd reason, Lionsgate is releasing COBWEB this week, and I was able to get my mitts on a screener for it. So let's see how COBWEB, from the director of the potent Netflix horror series Mary Ann and the writer of last year's Texas Chainsaw, holds up. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. COBWEB is new in theaters this week from Lionsgate. It's directed by Samuel Bodin and written by Chris Thomas Devlin. Young Peter, played by Woody Norman, is a shy, bullied 8-year-old who suddenly starts hearing noises in his room in the middle of the night. What first starts out as knocking on the wall evolves into a voice from what seems to be a little girl trapped in the walls of his home. While his mother Carol, played by Lizzie Kaplan, and father Mark, played by the boy's Anthony Starr, insist it's his vivid imagination, Peter thinks otherwise, and when he draws an ominous picture at school, his teacher, Miss Devine, played by Infinity Pool's Cleopatra Coleman, becomes concerned something strange is happening in the home. It does seem something is off with Peter's family, but is it all in Peter's head, or are his parents hiding an ominous secret in the walls of their home? COBWEB is this year's Barbarian, mixed with a little bit of Malignant. While it lacks the humorous central act of Barbarian, the ominous tone and non-stop rate of scares, shocks, and weirdness makes COBWEB stand out among most lame jump scare fests that litter the theaters. COBWEB's scares are real, earned, and potent. I spent the bulk of COBWEB wondering what type of horror movie this was. Is it a psychological horror film a la The Babadook, or a monster movie like The Boogeyman, or a ghost story like the recent Insidious sequel? Throughout the first hour of the film, director Samuel Bodin keeps what the real threat is under wraps, but gives some pretty unsubtle hints as to what the film wants you to believe. COBWEB is a dark fairy tale playing with the question of how well do we really know our parents. As a child, parents play a specific integral role, but more times than not, we don't really know them. Parents behave in ways that a child doesn't understand, be it something they think a child can't handle, something the child might not be ready for, or some kind of secret they never really want the child to ever know. They act different when the child is not around. COBWEB delves into these issues in the most devious of ways, presenting Peter's parents in a light reminiscent of the 80s horror film Parents and Tobe Hooper's Invaders from Mars, where seemingly innocent behavior of the parents is perceived as absolutely horrifying to the child. COBWEB offers up some effective scenes casting Peter's parents in the worst of lights. But are Peter's parents monsters, or is something much worse going on? I'm not telling, but what transpires is unexpected, strange, and absolutely unpredictable. The last half hour of COBWEB had me on the edge of my seat. I didn't know what to expect, and at some times I didn't know if I was supposed to believe what I was seeing or not. I tell you, this movie really messed with my head. Both Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr are fantastically ambiguous here as the parents. Obviously, something else is going on that they aren't letting us in on, as the film is from the perspective of Peter, but Kaplan and Starr play ominous so well. Kaplan is usually strong at comedy, but here she's wonderfully bent as Peter's mother, Carol, who goes through an awesome array of feelings as the film plays out. Starr, unfortunately, is somewhat typecast, as he seems a lot like a more domesticated, yet still threatening Homelander from The Boys. But this typecasting ends up being a benefit, as nothing and no one is what they seem in COBWEB. Cleopatra Coleman is solid as a substitute teacher who crosses the line by getting a bit too close to her student. While this character is somewhat cliched in these types of films, she does a good job of it. But while the child actor often annoys the hell out of me, the real standout is Woody Norman, who was last seen with Joaquin Phoenix in Come On, Come On, and will next be seen in The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Not only does Norman look a lot like Lizzie Kaplan and could pass as her own child, he's a really strong little actor, acting naturally, understanding the scenes, and not just reading lines fed to him off camera. The screenplay for Cobweb has received a lot of recognition as it is full of original twists and turns, and these accolades are well deserved as many of the scenes play out in two ways: the way the parents see things and the way the child perceives them. But what really impressed me was the splendidly diabolical way Cobweb looks. From the retro wallpaper lining every nook and cranny of the home to the wonderful dance of shadows director Samuel Bodin plays with, this is one good-looking movie. The set design is awe-inspiring as Peter's home feels somewhat like something out of a nightmare fever dream, with rickety boards, chipped paint outside, darkly lit rooms inside, and an overgrown pumpkin patch in the backyard. Bodin's camera really takes us into a world unlike our own, and it's a really scary world. Throughout, Bodin makes you feel something is just off camera, causing you to crane your neck to hopefully get a glimpse of what's really happening. This unpredictable way of filming gives a sense of unease, something Bodin did masterfully throughout his Netflix series, Mary Ann. I really am looking forward to seeing what Bodin and screenwriter Chris Thomas Devlin have in store for us next, after seeing this movie. Cobweb is a strong descent into horror unlike anything you're bound to see this summer. It doesn't feel like a knockoff of other films, and even if it does play off of childhood fears of the dark, like many horror films do these days, it does so in a way that feels fresh and dangerous. It's got an iconic threat, and really stands out amongst most of the mainstream horror films out there, as it's loaded with genuine scares and terrifying twists. With this film taking place on Halloween, I'm dumbfounded as to why Lionsgate released this one in the middle of summer and not in October. Nevertheless, if you can see Cobweb in theaters, you should, as this type of original horror doesn't often get the widescreen treatment, and it deserves to be seen.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're doomed. You're doomed. Live the life that you are meant to be. Live inside